So I don't really know how to deal with this. I'm a manager at a shop that's 420 friendly for employees. As long as it doesn't affect your work, we're all a big stoner family. We know who's capable of working high, and who isn't. One of my employees is becoming a bit of a chronic liar. He's a bit of a performer, always doing impressions, and generally being a pretty funny guy, but he's a bit of a slacker. I'll call him Scooby. One day, Scooby comes in, uncharacteristically quiet, just looking sad and depressed. He was working slower than usual, and not really responding to anybody, in the middle of an otherwise busy kitchen. So he gets pulled outside, and tells the owner of the store that his dad just died, and he was reeling from it. He told him not to tell anybody, because he's not the kind of person to spread his emotional baggage around. The owner and I gave him a hug, told him to go home, and take as long as he needs. He comes back a couple of days later, and everything seems alright. A few days later, a man walks into the store, and asks to see Scooby. I was wondering if I could see Scooby. That's my son. You're his dad. Yeah, we look alike, don't we? He did. They looked exactly alike. So now we're faced with the situation of this kid being a little liar. I pulled my boss, the owner, aside, and asked him what to do. He told me that we're extremely short-handed right now, and letting him go would be counterproductive, because we're in the middle of training 3 people, and letting him go would force the more capable people to work 50+ hours a week. There's basically 2 to 3 of us, plus the owners. He told me not to say anything to Scooby, and that he and his wife would take care of it. A few weeks have passed now, and I no longer believe a word out of this kid's mouth. Apparently the owners talked to him about his lying, but since then, it hasn't really stopped. He's taken off of work from vomiting all the time. At one point, he took 3 Fridays and 2 Saturdays off in a row, because of all the vomiting, and various digestion issues. He said he went to the doctor, and his doctor told him he was allergic to eggs, so he stopped eating eggs, and then he was okay. Meanwhile, I'll occasionally catch him eating a pre-packaged egg sandwich we bring for the employees for their lunch breaks. One time, he came in all sad and depressed again, because his girlfriend broke up with him, and his productivity slowed down to a crawl. We told him to keep his personal drama at the door, and sent him home. That night, I see he and his girlfriend publicly snuggling all over my Facebook feed. I don't know what to do. I can't look this fucking kid in the eye anymore, and my boss won't fire him. Do I just deal with it, and keep letting this little shit look at me in my face and lie to me every time he wants to take off of work? Relevant comments. Additional info. OOP on talking to the owners about the matter. That's the thing, they already know about it all. It's impossible to lie to me, especially if I've already caught you in a lie. Then, when you talk to me, my default position is that you're lying, and I'll go back in and logically catch people in lies. The kid's a terrible liar already, and when he talks to me, he's talking to the goddamn gatekeeper of truth. Not to toot my own horn or anything, lol. But the only way it's affecting my work, is that I would occasionally have to cover for him. But I told them that if this continues, they would have to cover for him, because I'm tired of working 6-day weeks, and having to come in at 3 a.m. on my day off to open the store because this dude's family are dropping like flies. I just don't know what to do as his boss. OOP when asked if there is an environment of fear and disapproval for asking for time off, a yes. That's what I figured the crux of the issue was at first, but he needs to grow balls, and ask for the time off if he really needs it. Unfortunately, he's asking for time off because he just doesn't want to work, and that's what seriously pisses me off about all of this. Just to rant a bit, I invited that fucking kid into my house, to smoke some of my weed, telling him how sorry I was for his loss. I genuinely empathized with him, and then his dad fucking walks into the store. And he kept the lie up. He told everybody a different story. He told the bosses and I that that wasn't actually his father, but his uncle, who he calls his father sometimes. It was bullshit, and he admits it by shutting up when called out on it, followed by nothing at all. We call him out, and he falls silent. Then he lies again the next day, and the same shit happens. We embarrass him all the time about his constant lying, and I just don't understand why he keeps doing it. It must be some sort of psychological issue. OOP when asked if the kid can just replace we're trying our best to train these new kids but there's so little time. We've resorted to having people come in at 3 a.m. to dress donuts in a closed store for 3 hours until it opens, but it's really hard finding people with an availability of 3 a.m. to whenever the fuck. So it's been about 2 months since I last posted about this incident. A lot of really crazy things have happened, so I'll jump right in. After everything happened with the last post, everybody simply put the dead dad incident in the back of their minds. They were pissed for a while, but they eventually let it go. I was the last one to let it go, but I eventually did. In retrospect, I shouldn't have, because he never once owned up to the lie. He just acted like none of it ever happened. He tried to come up with lies to get out of working holiday shifts he was scheduled for, Christmas, New Year's, but nobody believed him, and he was told that if he didn't show up to these shifts, that he'd be fired. He showed up to the Christmas shift, but he overslept through the New Year's shift. Nobody cared, because we ended up not needing him for the shift anyway, and one of the new guys ended up covering for him on call. Everybody was pissed at him again, and he's been on thin ice ever since. Then shit hit the fan in the past few days. A couple of days ago, his apparently psycho girlfriend caught him hanging out in a car with one of our mutual coworkers. She had an absolute breakdown, and started pounding on her window. Scooby hops out of the car to calm her down, and the coworker, Sky, drives off. The psycho girlfriend gets in her car, and keeps trying to cut Sky off in traffic, at least that's the story I heard from my boss. She eventually lets up, Sky manages to get home safe, and texted Scooby basically cussing him out. Later that night, I make a quick stop by the store owner's house, to pick something up for the store, and they tell me that Scooby called them and told them that he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days, because he got into a big fight with his girlfriend, and she slashed his tires. The next morning, I show up for my shift, and Scooby calls the store. His speech is all slow, mumbled, and he's slurring his words. I immediately think he's strung out on something. He brags about doing acid, and other hardish drugs. He tells me this story about how, the night before, after his girlfriend slashed his tires, she calmed down, and they were walking around where they live, in some warehouse district somewhere, apparently, looking for a store to grab money so they can call a tow truck to come get his car. While walking, he and his girlfriend got mugged. He's fine, but they beat her up pretty badly, and took all their money. Because of this, he wouldn't be able to work for the next few days, which is Valentine's Day, our busiest day of the year by far. Nobody even wanted to speak to him at that point. So it all came down to this morning. The owner comes in, and I asked her if anyone has spoken to Scooby. Basically, she pulled a string, and his entire wall of lies came crumbling down. I can't make this shit up. So yesterday afternoon, Scooby fucking calls the store, with a disguised voice, and asks for one of our coworkers, Ashley, who you can read all about. He asks for her, and tells her to meet him out the back of the store with his paycheck that was left for him at the cash register. He did this so that he could avoid having to talk to the owner. Well, she caught wind of it, and showed up out back of the store with his paycheck, but he noticed, and literally ran away. He shows up about a half an hour later, with fresh scratches on his neck. Because apparently when you get mugged by a group of guys, they scratch your neck. She confronted him about all of it, told him that she doesn't believe a word he ever says, and that she loves him, and wishes he'd stop making terrible decisions. By the end of the conversation, he basically admitted to all of the lies, and he was finally fired. And thus, is the tale of Scooby, the wandering liar. TLDR, Scooby was forgiven for the original set of lies, but built up a new set of lies that were so outlandish and Jerry Springer-esque, that he was finally fired. Final comments from OOP on Scooby: he's the kind of liar where he's so introspective, that he thinks his outlandish lies are going to fool anybody. It baffled me. I never knew how this dude was ever getting through his life, but I found out a few things over the course of him working there, that proved that he was just a pillar of bad decisions. That was Scooby's trademark. He got arrested a month ago, and was put in jail, because he fessed up to some shoplifting that his girlfriend did. He was already on probation from some other shit, but he got off on a legal technicality, and got off light. But being in jail for 2 days didn't do anything to help Scooby get his shit together. His parents kicked him out of his house, and he's been floating between his girlfriend's house, and his ex-girlfriend's house when he and his current girlfriend are fighting. I know, this shit sounds like a bad soap opera, and none of us understands why he's letting himself be put into this situation. He needs his ass kicked by someone who cares about him, because he's going down a really bad road. Scooby running from the owner. Apparently, he saw her before she got back there, ran behind the wall, ran around the corner to his car before she came through the back door. She saw him fly out of the parking lot in his non-tire slashed car that he spent hours using as an excuse to get out of work. OOP when asked why a donut shop is busy on Valentine's Day: who knows? It just happened that way. For the past 2 years the shop has been opened. People like to be creative with their Valentine's Day gifts, so they get donuts instead of flowers and chocolates. Story 2. My 17F stepmother, Jane, is a wonderful, wonderful woman. She and my father got married when I was 4, and she's been a rock in my life ever since. My mother was always my primary caregiver, but up until that point her relationship with my father was acrimonious and I basically never saw him. Jane was the reason they developed a stable co-parenting relationship. She encouraged everyone having a good relationship with each other and was always there to support me and my mom when things got rough. Jane was always a really hard worker. When she met my dad, he was living out of a hotel and my mother was doing everything in her power to keep me away from him because she was petty and angry that their relationship didn't work out. Meanwhile, Jane had a great job, a nice house, helped my dad get back on his feet, negotiated a visitation schedule with my mom, who hated her for a long time, and made sure my dad sent us money every week because neither one of them could afford an attorney to negotiate child support payments. Jane had no reason to do any of these things, but as I got older she made it clear that she loved me as much as she loved my half-brothers who were born a few years later. I even have my own room in her house because at the time we lived with my grandparents. Various boyfriends of my mom and Jane felt that I needed a more stable environment than that. She's like the opposite of the evil stepmom. When I was 15, Jane won a big lawsuit against an airline company and got awarded upwards of $1 million. She used the money to build sizable trust funds for me and my brothers so that we would be taken care of later in life. Despite having a lot more money, she still wanted to live a fairly modest life, so she paid off the house she has and has been living there ever since with my dad. Sure, she bought a new car and they went on a few nice vacations, but she didn't blow all her money on stupid things, which I respected. About a year ago, things started getting really weird. Whenever I saw Jane she seemed to look sicker and sicker, but no one would tell me or my brothers why, even though I know they knew. All we knew is that she was at the hospital a lot. Around the same time, my mom has been coming around my dad a lot more and acting really strange, basically like she was trying to romance him. Whenever Jane was in the hospital my mother would insist on spending the night at their house and playing mom to my brothers, which was so weird to me because she never liked them or Jane. She'd be the perfect little housewife and my mom is not like that at all. It was super fake. Worst of all, my dad started falling for it. I'm not stupid, I'm pretty sure they were sleeping together. I tried to shield my brothers from it, but they're not dumb either. I tried talking to my dad too, but he insisted it wasn't like that. Then a few weeks ago, my mom started talking about all the places she'd like to visit, how she wanted a new car and was looking to invest. Which is weird because my mom has been a bartender her whole life and has lived paycheck to paycheck since before I was born. She was acting like she was about to get a lot of money, which started to make me really suspicious. Between Jane being sick and my mom acting all nouveau riche, I had a lot of questions. Finally, I decided to visit Jane in the hospital and ask her about my trust fund. I found out that if anything happened to her, that my dad would inherit all the money, including full control of the trusts for me and my brothers. She asked me why I was so interested in the trust fund, so I told her what's going on with my parents and how my mom has been acting with my dad. I didn't want to, but after everything she did for me, she deserved the truth. It really hurt me to break her heart like that, especially once I found out that she was basically in hospice at this point because of irreversible kidney failure. She's only got a few more months. We both cried so much. Then, 2 days ago everything came to a head. My mom stormed in furious and started arguing with my dad. Apparently Jane met with her lawyer and changed the trust so that my dad would get nothing and all of the trusts would be controlled by my step-aunt. She demanded to know how Jane found out about their relationship, and I came out and told them that I told Jane everything. I told them that if they wanted to play stupid games they would win stupid prizes and that I wasn't going to let them screw Jane over after all the help she gave my family when she didn't have to. My mom slapped me and my dad just looked so defeated. Then my mom told my dad that she didn't really love him, that she was just pretending to so he would marry her and she could get all of the money. The worst part about it is that my brothers witnessed the whole thing, and now on top of their mom dying they have to deal with a cheating dad and his vindictive ex. Our whole family is in ruins and I feel like it's my fault even though I know it's not. Yesterday I visited Jane again and told her about the fallout. She apologized and said that she had to dissolve my trust fund to make sure my mother didn't get a hold of the money, but that as her oldest, I will inherit the house property after she is gone, and that's worth more than the other 2 trust funds combined. My father won't get anything because she's going to divorce him before she dies, and honestly I'm happy for her. She made me promise to take care of my brothers and told me that once I turn 18 this summer I can kick my dad out of the house if I want to. And I fully plan to do that, by the way. I haven't talked to my dad since and I can't even look at my mom. I can't believe they would conspire to do this to Jane after all this time. Just proof that they deserve each other, and I'm embarrassed that they're my parents. Once I turn 18 I'm going to cut my dad out as much as I can and cut my mom out completely. I hope she rots. Meanwhile I'm going to try and be at the hospital as much as I can until Jane passes away. Anyways. I just needed to vent. I'm really messed up about the whole thing and I feel super betrayed, although I can't even begin to imagine how Jane feels. I'm gonna be so effed up when she dies. I can't even think about that right now. But at least she's not surrounded by people who just want to bring her down. Thanks for reading. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to connect with each other in the comments below. Until next time, be kind, be curious, and I'll catch you in the next video. Corner Stories signing off.